On this week's Q&A episode of Deal in the Cards, I'll talk about a variety of topics you guys asked in the comments, such as Oli Marmol's leadership. Is he the right man to lead the St. Louis Cardinals? And is he the source of their bullpen issues and some other issues that the club is having in 2025? How much longer can the club stick with Mikolas? Updates on JJ Wetherholt. How bad are the Cardinals actually really? Ivan Herrera's future playing time and what his role is like with the club when he returns. All of this and more on this episode of Dealing the. Hey, welcome into Dealing the Cards. The first time joining the podcast. My name's Josh, and I'm one of the hosts of the podcast. We do these weekly Q&As on Fridays to answer questions that you guys submit in the comments, Twitter, in our private Discord, and more. So it's a really fun time for us to address specific questions that you all have that we maybe didn't get to address on the podcast, or you want a more in-depth answer on, all those different kinds of things. And as you can imagine, people aren't all that thrilled with how the Cardinals are doing so far, and rightfully so. It's been a terrible start to the season from the club's at least record standings, right? Like 10-15 to start the year, 5.5 games back of the NL Central lead at the moment. Again, we will talk about a variety of the issues that have led to this point. And so, again, if you have questions as we go through this podcast for next week, feel free to drop them on this episode. That's the best place to do it. But you can specify in a future episode video. You can DM us on Twitter. If you join our channel membership on YouTube, you can join our Discord and put questions in there. But let's jump right into this week's content. So the first question we got today is, how much longer can the Cardinals stick with Mikolas? Every time he pitches, he stretches the bullpen. I completely agree with you. We just did our tier list for the first month of the season where we ranked player performances through the year so far. And we had a little bit of a debate between D tier and F tier for Miles Mikolas. We ultimately landed on F tier for that very reason. Some people want to point to the fact that Mikolas has a just over a 3 ERA in his other 4 starts this year outside of that blow-up start against the Boston Red Sox. And while I understand that argument, Miles Mikolas provides value to this club when he's able to eat some innings and save the bullpen a little bit. And to this point in the year, Miles Mikolas doesn't really do that. And he hasn't really done that in a while. I think it was his last 12 or 13 starts of the 2024 season. He averaged less than 5 innings to start. Again, this year, some of that's inflated because of that really bad start in Boston. But at this point, Miles Mikolas has to prove to me and prove to Andrew and Sandy that he can be that guy before we're going to start ranking him as that guy. Again, it's hard to give a guy who has a almost 6 ERA right now, which has come down since a bad start, but for the first month of baseball as a passing, or not even passing, but just below average grade as a D. You also throw into the equation that Mikolas is being paid $18 million a year, and he's supposed to eat innings, and he's supposed to go deeper into games. And he's not a guy that at this point in his career that you can say you're getting any sort of value out of him when he's a 5-and-dive guy at best. He's also kind of getting away with a lot of those starts right now. He's allowing a lot of really hard contact. And the reason he's not going deeper into games is because he knows this, and the Cardinals coaching staff knows this, and the front office knows this, is that once he goes through an order 2 times, the third time through the order, he usually gets demolished in any further into a game. And so they can't afford to let him go into the 7th, even the 6th inning times or 8th inning. Like, they got to pull him early, or else the smoke and mirrors won't work anymore. And I think that's a terrible player to have on your roster right now. A couple more average or good starts will move him up in our rankings. But yeah, but again, specifically to this question of how much longer they can stick with him, at this rate, seems like kind of going to be a little while, because Tin Kent's is hurt. Quinn Matthews is hurt. Cooper Jerpy's hurt. I think Summer Burson might be hurt now. Zach Thompson hasn't really shown you much. You've got Michael McGreevy sitting in Memphis, but again, if you brought up McGreevy, DFA Mikolas, you don't have any other options outside of that. Takeo Roby's awesome in Double-A right now, but it's going to be a little bit before we see him in St. Louis. Again, I don't necessarily agree that Mikolas is on the roster, but if we're talking about how much we're going to continue to see them, I think you're going to see Mikolas for quite a while. So let's continue on. After a hopeful start to the season, the team seems to be regressing again. Wondering if the off-field leadership, thinking everyone would be relieved if we woke up with Albert at the helm. So basically, this is a question of how much of the Cardinals' struggles continues to be what feels like on here Oli Marmol's fault, and I'm going to go ahead and add in another one of the questions in here to this point. There's a question in all caps. Don't understand the Oli Marmol hate. Why use Fernandez repeatedly in some of the biggest moments? Great questions. I've said prior to the season and will continue to stand by that the Cardinals have the opportunity to sign or to hire Albert Pujols as their manager after the season, or even Yadier Molina, that they have to jump at the opportunity to do so, because I think it's a unique opportunity to bring in someone that could be a game changer as a manager. But again, I don't think Oli Marmol's the problem here. Do I think you could potentially get better? Yeah, and that's why I'd be open to doing that, especially when you're going to be transitioning to the Hein Bloom era. It makes sense, the transition at that point. But like when you talk about the bullpen issues, Bernie Miklasz did a good video, I think it was today or yesterday, about not using Ryan Helsley in spots other than closing, and I get that. And I wish the Cardinals would be willing to use Helsley more strategically with how bad this bullpen's been. Something I don't think feel like we've gotten a clear answer on lately related to that is back in the arbitration issues with Helsley and the Cardinals. Part of the reason that Helsley stuck to just the closer role and wasn't going to be used in other spots in 2024 was because of the fact that he was getting penalized in arbitration because of the fact that those were costing him save opportunities, and he was using bullets on the eighth inning to get a hold or something like that. And obviously he's not going to have arbitration after this year because he's going to be a free agency, but he's going to be a free agent. And if he's getting penalized by an organization like the Cardinals or other organizations for not getting saves, but being utilized in other ways, then he's not going to do that. We saw Josh Hader tell the Brewers basically, no, I'm not letting you use me in consecutive days anymore. I'm not letting you use me in non-safe situations because I'm not going to get paid the same amount of money if you do that to me. And to my knowledge, it was a mutual decision by the Cardinals and Ryan Helsley that, hey, you'll be healthier and probably more consistent if we just use you in the ninth. And from his angle, he doesn't want his potential payday to be ruined by this. So I don't know if this decision's in a vacuum for Oli. If it is, I think that's fair to criticize him, because at this point, if your bullpen's this thin and this bad, you need to deploy Helsley in big spots to save some games, and not just literally save games with to get a save, but like when Ryan Fernandez is brought in to face Francisco Lindor, that would have been a great spot for Ryan Helsley, but of course that's not the spot right now. Ryan Helsley the other day, instead of Ryan Fernandez, when Ryan Fernandez gave up that 3-run bomb that basically lost the game for the Cardinals, I think you got to explore some things like that going forward. Again, though, I struggle to know how much of that is Oli Marmol's fault versus, again, a decision with Ryan Helsley, specifically with the front office. But then the other side of this, too, is that when you talk about why does he keep using Ryan Fernandez, who controls that Ryan Fernandez is on the roster? John Mozeliak. And Oli had that post-game quote the other day, which I'll pull it up to read it because I think it's really important, and people have been kind of coming at Oli about it, but I actually think Oli's just trying to tell us how frustrated he is with John Mozeliak. He said, when he was asked about kind of like the relieving options he has, he said, this is who we've got. We've got to get back on track. There's nothing coming from below where it's going to change what is going on up here. We need to improve these players. The only way is that for them to pitch. We're going to keep them going. We have to continue to get on the other side of this. I don't hear him saying that as, oh, these are my guys, and I just want to run Ryan Fernandez out there every single time because I just believe in him and whatever. I mean, they just sent Ryan Fernandez down to AAA. To me, this is Oli Marmol saying, John Mozeliak, get me some help. You only brought in Phil Maton to replace Andrew Kittredge, and we saw so much regression from this bullpen in the second half last year. This is all. I mean, to me, Oli's crying for help, being like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here because I have basically 3 relievers I can rely on. 4 if you count Steven Matz, but he's in the 6-man rotation thing. Again, some of that, I don't know how much that's Oli's decision to have Matz part of that rotation mix versus an organizational decision. I just think a lot of the criticisms Ollie gave for the bullpen this year, outside of the not using Helsley in other spots, which I agree with. I'm saying I agree with everyone's take on that. If that's his decision alone, I don't know if it is though. That's why I'm hesitant to just go at him about it, because it doesn't feel like to me it's only his decision. Would the Cardinals be better with Albert Pujols as the manager? I believe so. Not necessarily this year's team, because I'm like, what would Pujols do differently besides maybe deploy Helsley in other spots than Oli would with the bullpen? But I think long term, maybe a change in leadership would be a good idea. But yeah, the reason I don't understand the Oli hate is because people like kind of Monday morning quarterback some of these bullpen moves, and I'm like, okay, what would you like? This happens frequently on Twitter or the YouTube comments or something like that. Someone will criticize a move, and I will respond and be like, okay, what would you have done differently? And like, there's no good answer given. So I'm like, then what was the problem? Because it didn't work, because all he had at his disposal was bad options and it didn't work. You're going to blame Oli for it. I'm not trying to sell you that Ollie's been a great manager this year. I'm just telling you the bullpen thing specifically. I don't know what he's supposed to do differently. That's a John Mozeliak issue to me. Feel free to disagree with me on that, but that's kind of where I go with I don't understand the hate side of it. But again, people are entitled to their opinion, and the reason you're listening here is because we're giving you our opinion. If you disagree, that's okay. It doesn't mean we're going to agree with you or stand by it, but that's where we're at. So I want to thank a couple of sponsors of our podcast real quick. 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles, located at 9640 Olive Boulevard in Olivet. They're open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards. They have the newest selections of packs, boxes, and single cards of local players and stars from around the league. We know many of you already shop at 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles, so make sure to let them know that we sent you if you go in and check them out. Or if you haven't checked them out already, I've been there, Andrew's been there, Sandy's been there, so many of you have been there. It's an awesome store for cards and other sports memorabilia. Make sure to go check out 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles. And I also want to tell you about one of our other presenting sponsors, and that is Underdog Sports. The Deal in the Cards podcast is proud to be partnered with Underdog Sports, our favorite place to play fantasy games. You're now eligible to play in Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, and 37 other U.S. states. You got to check out Pick'em. It's so easy to play. You just pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can win 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. If that sounds like fun, sign up with our promo code CARDS to claim your first free pick plus first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We can't wait to see your entries. Make sure you use that promo code CARDS on the screen now. You can download Underdog Sports in our bio, and you can get started on there with some Pick'em. It's a really awesome app to use for fantasy sports. So I want to continue the questions here. There's a question about any updates on J.J. Wetherholt. If you were paying attention last week, he was pulled from a AA game after the top of the first. He didn't even take his at-bat. And there was questions as to why. And immediately you got to think about the hamstring as a potential issue, but it's been confirmed by Derek Gould since then that J.J. Wetherholt was just dealing with flu-like symptoms, and so he seems to be okay. So great sign there, but again, initial shock value, very concerning. Ivan Herrera, question was asked about where he's going to play and whose spot does he take. I think it's pretty clearly he's going to be the catcher again when he comes back. Nothing's been indicated otherwise. Even when he went down to injury, there wasn't really a question about if he was going to continue to be the starting catcher. Long term, maybe he has to do a position shift to first base or DH or something else, but for right now, he takes Pedro Pais' spot, and he's the catcher. No questions asked. I don't really see any other scenario here, but who knows? Maybe the Cardinals will surprise us. Another question. This is a longer one, but I have a lot of thoughts. The question or statement and questions was, I don't think the Cardinals are really bad, though. So they're making a quote. I don't know who said this. It must have been me, Sandy, or Andrew. But then they said they're 9-14, now 10-15. Terrible bullpen. Their consistent hitters still aren't really big threats. Everyone else is wildly inconsistent. They're built for small ball but can't drive in runs. Rotation is fine for now. They're 1-10 on the road. I don't know what you point to specifically as the cause of that, but that's a bad teams don't even go 1-10 on the road. Atrocious teams do. They're bad. We knew that they were bad, and everything they've shown have shown us proves that. They've not doomed to be awful forever, but they're bad right now and for the foreseeable future. Why are we struggling with that thought? Okay, so the original quote that was given here in a question of like, why are we wrapping our minds around this is we apparently one of us said they aren't really that bad. Like they aren't really bad though, which I still agree with. Okay. The Cardinals aren't a really bad team. There's 3 phases of the game here, major phases, or 4 phases: defense, bullpen, rotation, lineup. Defense has been pretty good, depending on who you look at or what metrics you care about. It's either been good or really good this year. So that matters. That's one unit. You look at the lineup. It is 8th in baseball runs scored, and you're telling me that they can't consistently drive in runs when they are top 10 in runs scored. They are 2nd in batting average. I believe they are 5th in on-base percentage. They are 6th in slugging percentage. They are 6th in OPS as a team. And you're telling me that the offense isn't good enough. I disagree. It's definitely not a problem. Now, do I think all year long they're going to be a top 8 to 5 offense in categories? No, especially if they don't have Ivan Herrera back, especially if Wilson Contreras is not hitting. But they are that good without Wilson Contreras hitting and with Ivan Herrera hurt most of the time. So, yeah, I like this offense. It needs more power. We've talked about that a little bit. Like, they don't really have that middle of the order bat. It's Wilson Contreras, but he's been struggling. And then maybe I think Ivan Herrera could be that, but we still need more of a sample size to really confidently say that. But he's at least a good bat, if not middle of the order bat already. So, good to great defense, a good lineup. The rotation, you're right, has been fine. Nothing. I'm not going to say it's been good, but it's been fine. And I'm actually kind of curious as a team right now, pitching wise, what the rotation ERA is. And I'll pull that up as I'm talking here. But we all know about go to that the bullpen's been terrible, right? Like that's been the real core issue of this team for this year now is they have a terrible bullpen. And honestly, with how bad the bullpen's been, it weighs down how good or average or really good some of these other things have been. I totally agree with that. So it's not as simple as just saying they have 3 good or 2 good, 1 average, and 1 bad area, and so they're an average or good team. That's not true. But I think at this point, it's hard for you to convince me that they're a really bad team when they have the ability offensively to produce like they have so far. It's rotation ERA right now. They're 13th in baseball with 3.89 ERA as starters right now. That's pretty darn good, okay? And I'd say I'll call it average, all right? And I think there's probably room for regression there. And long term this season, I don't see them being great. But their bullpen ERA right now, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th worst in baseball with a 5.11 bullpen ERA. That's the major problem right now. And when we talked about this on the podcast, like I predicted the Cardinals, and actually I'm going to include this last thing on here too. So Andrew, if you're post editing right now, you can throw up these other comments. We've gotten some angry comments the last few days on one of some of our videos saying time for Uber, Homer, Cardinals, water carrier. What a preface name for me, Josh, to admit he's wrong. The team and organization stink. And like another comment, time to eat some crow, Josh. Stop being so butthurt and defensive when fans push back. I predicted them to go 80 and 82, to go below 500. And when we talked about their all off season, we all kept saying they failed and that John Mozeliak didn't do his job and that they didn't do enough and that they should have traded Eric Fedde and potentially Ryan Helsley and they should have built for the future and they failed in that area. And I know this isn't all of you listening, but like some of you do believe that like myself or the podcast that we just like all we do is praise all the Cardinals do. We're never critical of them. All that. I'm like, well, first of all, I don't think you listen all off season if that's who you are, if you're in that camp, because many of you are sick of how much we criticize them. Second of all, what do I need to eat crow about? We talked about all offseason. The organization needed major change and that they failed the offseason and that they weren't going to be a good team this year. And when they started off hot with a good offense, we were like, they could be better than we thought. But we didn't say better than we thought as in like a World Series contender or even a legit contender in the National League. We're like, hey, I mean, like potentially if this offense just continues to hit like it's shown so far and they figure out the pitching a little bit, yeah, they maybe could push for the playoffs, maybe. But like that was it. 2025, I've had very little expectations for this team. So, no, I don't think they're a really bad team. I think they're mediocre, kind of like they were last year. But here's the difference. Last year, their true strength was a bullpen that could hold leads. And so they outperformed, their record outperformed what Pythagorean record said and what their offense should have been. Like their offense was so bad, they should have been nowhere near sniffing the playoffs for most of the year. But they did because the bullpen held leads. This year, the offense is definitely good enough to be a playoff team at this point. The rotation's doing its job. It's the bullpen's abysmal. And so they're not winning the games. And so, yeah, they're mediocre, maybe bad, but they're not one of the worst teams in baseball. And they could trend that direction. I'm not saying they won't. Like 2 weeks from now, we could be talking about them being really, really bad because maybe the offense just taper off and the rotation does start blowing up and the bullpen continues to be bad. And it's like, yeah, then they're a one-way ticket toward a full rebuild or at least a full sell-off at the deadline. But I kind of thought that's not that bad, but I thought what we saw right now is kind of what we thought we'd see this year is that they're a mediocre team and they're going to have highs and lows. And overall, they're going to finish below 500 and miss the playoffs. They have good offense, okay pitching, bad bullpen. Now, if you want to look optimistically long term, and I think this is a real thing, that right now you have a lot of the young bats producing and looking better. And that's the part of the team that could be a part of the future. This current rotation, for the most part, everyone outside of Andre Palante really isn't a part of this future. And the bullpen, it's like, yeah, it's definitely not a part of the future. Those guys rotate every year. But the one unit that is producing. That's a good sign long term. But for the immediate future, yeah, this club doesn't look like it's in good shape. And I knew that coming in. Sandy knew that coming in. Well, he was more optimistic, but he mostly knew that. Andrew knew that coming in. So I don't know. That's all I have to say with that. But appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Really like doing these Q&A episodes. Sorry to end on kind of a heavy downer note. But anyways, check out the podcast on Sunday. We'll be back recording again. Birds on the Farm on Tuesdays. We go live twice a week over here. Like and subscribe. It helps the channel a ton. We'll see you guys next time.